Should you start a podcast? Simple enough question. The answer, though, is a little bit complicated. Let's dig into it. Okay, so the first set of numbers to think about is that 1 in 4 people 18 up in Canada, the UK, and Australia is now listening to at least one podcast episode every day. That's an amazing number. That's 25% of the adult population. In the United States, that number is 1 in 3, so 33%, and the number continues to grow. So from a demand standpoint, clearly podcasts are on the rise. More and more people are listening, and that's having impact. Okay, so let's dig into the positives on the reasons why you might think about starting a podcast. First of all, the positives are that 1 in 4 or 1 in 3, and that listenership is rising. In terms of male and female listenership, it's a pretty even split. It's 51% male, 49% female. And there's a history there. Podcasts started, more than 15 years ago, but that's when the first bump in listenership and creation of podcasts really began. And more men started making podcasts, so more men started listening to podcasts. As time has gone by, more and more women are listening to podcasts. More and more women are creating podcasts. People are creating podcasts in general. So that's really diversifying. And at some point, we won't have that slightly male skew to listenership of podcasts. But right now, they skew slightly, very slightly male, and female is catching up. Podcasts are strongest kind of in that powerful bracket with the millennials. The millennials is the highest listenership rating. About 50% of millennials listen to at least one episode every month. Then the shoulder generations, Gen Z and Gen X, slightly above, slightly below, they're listening at about a 30% clip. So 1 in 3 is listening to about one episode or so a month or more, and that's increasing. So that's right in the zone where you want it to be in terms of buying power. By the time you get to baby boomers, I always like to joke, they're watching TV. And Gen Alpha, they're just distracted by so many things. It's hard for Gen Alpha to do anything and listen and absorb content for 25 to 30 minutes at a time. So they haven't quite grown into podcasts just yet. People listen at home mainly. They do listen on the commute, on the drive, but AM/FM radio is still the leader there. People are predominantly listening at home while they're multitasking. 71% of people say they listen while they're multitasking at home. So they're doing the vacuuming, they're doing the dishes, they're looking after the kids, they're mowing the lawn, they're shoveling the snow, they're doing something at home, and they want something to keep their brain occupied. People also listen while they're on walks. I listen when I'm on the elliptical every day over the lunch hour. A lot of people listen at the gym. People listen while they're at work. They'll be sitting at their computer working in spreadsheets, and they've got their earbuds in, and a lot don't listen to music. They're listening to podcasts. The other thing is 66% of podcast listeners, 2/3, have a university degree or higher, and they earn as a household, as a family income, more than $100,000 or 100,000 pounds per year. So they're more educated and they make more money. Those are the positives for why you should start a podcast. Okay, those are the pros. Let's look at some of the cons, the negatives. Something called pod fade. About 9 out of 10 new podcasts quit by about episode 7. I actually just had an email the other day from someone saying, I was asking them whether they were interested in starting a podcast. They just kind of had that personality. They were guesting on another podcast. I asked, have you ever thought about it? And the email came back, actually, we started one about a year ago and we quit after episode 7. This is something called pod fade, and people do quit often. It's hard to start and maintain a podcast. There's actually a lot more work involved in creating a good, sustainable podcast than a lot of people realize. People think, well, it's easy to start a podcast. Well, it is. technically. You can, heck, with a phone, you can make a podcast episode. But to create something that people really want to listen to, that they want to follow. Most people follow between 5 and 8 podcasts in their listening app. To become one of those 5 to 8, somewhere in there, you need to earn their trust. You need to earn their respect and why you're worth it. The other thing is there's about 5 million podcasts out there, but less than 10% have published a new episode in the last 30 days. So while there's tons and tons of podcast content that's out there on the apps, only about 10% of them is publishing at any sort of regular cadence. And to pick up rhythm with podcast listenership, you should be publishing at least every 2 weeks, if not every week or more. The really popular podcasts publish pretty much every day, and they're the ones that grow. Should you do it? My answer is it depends really on what you want your podcast to do. Let me introduce the concept of the sales funnel. You've probably heard of this. It was actually created back in 1898 by E. St. Elmo Lewis, when people were first starting to include psychology in some of their marketing and communication planning. And the old sales funnel, there are tons of different modern variations on this, but the old sales funnel is still a pretty simple way to look at how people take action on things. The first thing is you need to get someone's attention. They need to know that you exist. Then you need to earn their interest, and you can help them, push them, nudge them to interest in you or what you offer. Then they need to develop a desire for what it is you're selling or offering, and you can nudge, you can help, but you can't push them too hard on that. And then ultimately, you need people to take action on what it is you're trying to get them to do, to say, to buy into, or to stop doing. Depends on what you want them to do. And a podcast fits actually right in the middle of the funnel. It's not bad up at attention, but again, it is just 1 in 4 or 1 in 3 who are listening to podcasts. It's not 4 out of 5 people who are on social media. So podcasts, from an attention standpoint, can't quite compare to social media yet. So they fit in the middle of the funnel. Interest and desire. People are spending 25, 30, 40, 45 minutes with each episode. They're building up so much trust in the host and in your brand. The layers of brand affinity that you're building are extraordinary. So that's where a podcast fits. They will ultimately fit on action, but it's hard to turn to a listener and say, now buy my thing, now buy my service. Because for the listener, it really feels like they're at a cafe table and they're taking part in a conversation with you or with you and your guest. And if suddenly you turn to the listener and say, hey, you should buy my thing, it just feels so abrupt. But if you have a coaching business or an academy or a masterclass or additional service or offerings of any kind, rather than just buy my thing, if you have other offerings, those are great for the action side of the funnel with a podcast. Podcast works really well in the middle, and it helps you build community. So should you do it? If what you're trying to do relates to brand awareness, to increase brand affinity, to add personality to your brand, to grow your personal brand or establish your authority or your thought leadership, to demonstrate your industry expertise with a very specific audience, to strengthen your customer and stakeholder relationships, to meet with influencers who can reference you to more leads. That's a key one for real estate agents, because ultimately, I'm not sure you're going to sell a lot of homes or get a ton of listings from having a podcast, but you might build your industry community and get more of those referrals this way. If you want to expand your partnership opportunities, if you want to boost your SEO, your search engine optimization, and your online visibility, if you're trying to gain subject matter knowledge by interviewing experts, and that's why I have my own podcast called Stories and Strategies, I like meeting and interviewing global experts in public relations and marketing to get their ideas. It's how I kind of keep up with all the latest and greatest ideas. If you're trying to create long form content, anchor content to repurpose into blogs, newsletters, social posts, and YouTube posts, for all those reasons, I think a podcast is fantastic. If you're trying to start a podcast to directly lead to more sales, I think the podcast is most likely to let you down. If you're trying to guide listeners to your online courses, your ebooks, your white papers, promote your coaching, your consulting services, events that you're holding, masterminds, academies, those are great. All solid reasons to have a podcast. So ultimately, should you start a podcast? My answer would be yes, if you understand that this is no doubt a long-term play, especially if you have an independent podcast. It will be slow to grow. If you understand that selling directly is going to be really hard, but you can lead them to other content that you've got, like those academies, those white papers, those books, things like that. And if what you're trying to do is develop an audience that has deep, deep roots, deep brand affinity for you, close ties to your brand, those are great reasons to start a podcast. Happy podcasting.